Hi, Hamish Conway here, and welcome to another episode of TACOS Tuesday, the best place for Amazon ads, tactics, and strategies. And this is episode 78 on Every Campaign Has a Job. And this is a little bit different this week. You'll notice Seb's not here right now, but what we're doing is giving you the audio with some screen share of a presentation that Sebastian did last week at Retail Fest in the Gold Coast. And this is a really high impact, like I think it's about 20, maybe 30 minutes with Q&A. And he runs through setting up the right objectives, how to find the right target ACoS, how to set the right bids, and deciding what the main objective should be for each of your SKUs. This is really pragmatic, and it's kind of like the secret sauce. And if you can follow this here, and I think we're going to put the slides in the download as well, this gives you really a really tight blueprint and kind of it gets into the practical how-tos. Okay, so follow along with this here. We also at the end have some Q&As. The questions are a little bit difficult to hear, so depending on how we do that, I may just copy over them. Otherwise, you'll hear the answers anyway, which are kind of useful, even if you can't fully understand the question. But look, I hope you enjoy it. Lock on in and get the slides afterwards if you want to as well.
Thanks, guys, for coming. I'm hoping that this session will give you guys a lot of insight and stuff that you guys can take and put into your own business today. The plan is not to be theory, but to be action. So by the end of it, I'm hoping that you guys can have some things that you can implement in your business straight away. So what we're going to focus on today is obviously Amazon ads. So with Amazon ads, the hardest part about Amazon ads is the complexity of it. And so the place I wanted to start today is talking about how simple scales and complexity doesn't scale. And so you need a good framework for understanding on how to make decisions. This isn't just for ads, this is for a bunch of things, but you need to have a good system or framework for understanding how to scale your advertising. Today, I'm hoping to take you guys from confusion to understanding how to set your objectives, to understanding what you can afford to pay for your advertising, to understanding why each campaign that you have needs a job and what job each campaign does. And then finally, moving you guys all the way through to clarity. Like I said, take screenshots. Who we are, we're Sell Global. We're an advertising specialist Amazon agency. We're in the booth back just behind stage 2 here, actually. So if there are any questions or you guys want to grab slides, please do so after the presentation. We've been working with Amazon for 10 years and helping brands locally, but also globally and international. Got a team of over 20 Amazon specialists, top 5% of Amazon agency in Australasia. We manage quite a lot of ad spend that puts us in that bracket. 100 million plus on Amazon in the last 12 months alone. So I don't say all of that to gloat. Why I say that is it does give us a lot of context on what works and what doesn't work. And one of the things that we understand is that brands don't get the fundamentals right on understanding what's important for Amazon advertising. So the next slide, I'm going to walk through the fundamentals of what makes up good Amazon advertising and also just managing the channel well. So the first base section of what the fundamentals are is your product listing, or what we call retail readiness. And you'll notice that this is not an advertising metric, and that's by design. Everything starts with your product and how good and the quality of your product. Your inventory, your pricing's correct, you've got good reviews, good ratings, all that kind of stuff. And so that's the base of your fundamentals. After that, and these are in order of leverage. So what has the highest leverage activity versus in order. The next is understanding what you can afford or what you can bid for. And we call this your target ACoS, which stands for your advertising cost of sale. After that, it's your targeting, which is what are you targeting? It needs to be relevant for what your product is. Amazon is a search engine at the end of the day, so your products do need to show up for relevant search terms. And so we call this your targeting. The next is your structure, how you structure your campaigns and how you set them up inside your campaign manager. And then the last piece is advanced strategies. You'll see advanced strategies is like the small little tip of the iceberg. And that is because it's a small piece of your strategy. Most of what you're seeing on here is what we call the fundamentals, and everything below that advanced strategies piece. A lot of people start at advanced strategies before that they've got product readiness, before they understand what they can afford to pay with their advertising and their bidding, before they understand what they should be targeting, and before they have the right structure. And so they get it all backwards. And so this is kind of the pyramid, so to speak, of getting your fundamentals right. So we're going to go through setting your objectives the right way. And that's the first piece of that puzzle. So what should my objectives be for Amazon ads? Step one is decide on what your objectives are. Do you want to grow sales? Do you want to improve profitability? A lot of the time, brands will switch between their decision-making too quickly between these two things. They want to grow sales and they want to grow it extremely profitably. Those things are, generally moving in opposite directions, and you can't do both of them a lot of the time well at the same time. So picking what your objective is for that quarter, for that 6 months, or whatever it is. Am I growing sales, or am I improving my profitability and my margins for this quarter, or whatever it is? Question is, can you do both? You can. There's obviously certain circumstances that you can, but again, you want to be leaning and focusing on one or the other as your primary objective for that period. Growth, profit, research. Step two is understanding your contribution margin. I can't tell you how many brands don't do this piece. And so just understanding and getting those fundamentals right, but understanding what your contribution margin is. And so what is, so this will help you understand what you can afford to pay for every click to be profitable on Amazon. An example of what this can look like on the platform is looking at what your average selling price is, as I've got up on the screen here, taking away what your Amazon fees are, taking away what your cost of goods is, and then you're left with what your contribution margin is. So in this example, if you've got a $24 product, you're paying $7.60 for your fees, and your cost of goods is $11, you have a contribution margin of 46.5%. Average selling price minus your fees, minus your cost of goods equals your contribution margin. A lot of people do this, but they won't do it at a product level, and that's where you can really get the unlocks for your brand. If you understand what your contribution margin is on a product level, you know where you can invest more and where you need to invest less based on your margins. Step three is setting your advertising goal. This is where we get back to the concept of what does your target ACoS need to be based on your profit goal. And just to reiterate what target ACoS is, it's your advertising cost of sale, and it's your ad spend divided by your ad sales. An example in this slide is talking about the number we were on before, which is your contribution margin. If you're trying to work out what your target ACoS should be, the way you do that is below, is you take your contribution margin. So in this example, it's 46.5%, which we calculated on the last slide. We take away our target profit. Let's say we want to hit a 15% target profit. That leaves us with a target ACoS of 31.5%. So we've just worked out really quickly for this brand what their, if they want to hit a target profit margin of 15%, what their target ACoS needs to be. They're already light years ahead of a lot of brands that we see that come in and just start advertising without having those fundamental pieces in place. Contribution margin minus target profit equals what your target ACoS should be. Step four is making your bid adjustments. So this is where the rubber meets the road. We've now worked out and done all the calculations. At this point, we want to start actually optimizing towards our goals and our objectives. So here we're doing, we're going to start making bid adjustments based on our target profit margin goal of 15%. So to optimize your campaigns towards these budgets, you now can adjust your what we call your cost per click, or I was using the example of bid, same thing, to maximize your bid to help hit your target. So the way that would work, again, we're gonna stay with this example. Let's say we have a target ACoS of 30%. Times that by our average selling price of $25 and times that by our conversion rate of 10%, and your target bid ends up being 75 cents. So that framework that I've taken you through, which is understanding what kind of profit you want to hit, what your contribution margin is, what kind of profit you want to hit, and how you're going to hit it, is what that process I just took you through. So you now understand that for every click that you're acquiring, you have to acquire them at about 75 cents. Now, if things change along this journey, you need to obviously recalculate. For example, let's say that your price point increases from $25 to $35. Well, that's going to change the math. You're now going to be able to afford to spend more acquiring those customers. Let's say my conversion rate, which is here at 10%, changes. So if I've got a deal on, or if anything like that is happening where my conversion rate improves, again, that's going to allow you to have a higher target bid to acquire those customers. Target ACoS times your average selling price times your conversion rate equals what your target bid should be. So that's stage one, which is kind of understanding how your bidding should be set up and how to get the most out of your advertising based on what your objectives are. If you've got it to this point and you have something like that in place, you're already a long way ahead of what most brands do. And as I said, we've got a lot of context here around brands that we work with and we manage. And a lot of brands don't do that part. The next stage is understanding that every campaign has a different job. It's in the same way that we want to be focused either on profitability or on growth. At this stage, we want to give every campaign and have it focus on a specific thing that it's doing. We don't want it to be simultaneously trying to grow our account and simultaneously trying to deliver profit for our account. So this section's about giving every campaign a job. Campaigns generally will fall into three specific buckets. We have got them here as ranking campaigns, research campaigns, or profit campaigns. And these are the three main campaign groups that we set up or have available. So each of these campaigns has its own unique target ACoS. So we talked about before having a target ACoS set based on what your profit margins are. In this section here, now we'll go ahead and apply that target ACoS we've got across our different campaigns, ranking, research, and profit. The next section, we're just going to talk about each campaign type. So this is ranking. What are ranking campaigns? These are campaigns for top of search driving sales. These are like your critical terms that you need to drive performance from. These are going to be, remembering Amazon is a search engine at the end of the day, these are going to be the critical search terms that you want to go after. So if I sell a dog bed, I want to make sure that that term is something that I'm going after. If I sell a dog bed of a certain size, and that's very specific to what I'm advertising on, those are going to be very important campaigns that are going to drive the majority of my sales. Why are they important? Sometimes to be competitive, we need to set our target ACoS above our contribution margin, meaning that we'll have a negative margin. There's certain search terms on Amazon that drive a lot of volume, and to be competitive on those, we do need to understand that we might need to set our target ACoS above what we can afford from a contribution margin point of view. But the important part there is that we understand that that's what we need to do, and we know how much margin we're giving away to be on those. When not to use them, you definitely don't want to be using these on keywords or search terms that you know you're not going to do well on. So for example, if I sell a tennis racket and I start advertising on the term tennis is a very, very broad term. People could be looking for tennis shoes, tennis balls, tennis rackets, tennis who knows what. And so the chances of me building my organic rank on that term is very, very low. And so we don't want to be doing it on very generic terms like that. We want to be targeting things that are relevant for our product. You don't want to be too relevant so that the volume's not there. You've got to find that balance there. When you can achieve organic rank, then yes, this is the right thing to do for your product and your brand. Main takeaways, ranking campaigns may lose money short term, but they're worth it for long-term organic growth. And that's the key part, that you'll be boosting that organic side. The next is research campaigns. What are research campaigns? These are campaigns for finding more keywords. This is when we know we have good terms that we can go after. I'll stick with the tennis racket analogy. And we want to find terms that are similar to that. So large tennis racket, yellow tennis racket. We want to find terms that are similar to the ones that we're advertising. So we start using what we call research campaigns. The idea of these campaigns isn't necessarily to drive profit. These are to find and grow the account. So talking about that growth and profit and that conversation before, these are about driving that growth side of the equation. So we're not necessarily trying to maximize profitability here. We're really trying to grow and expand the amount of search terms and targets that we show up for. Why are they important for sales growth? Of course, when not to use these. If you have a very limited budget or you're already suffering from a margin point of view, you want to limit your exposure to these type of campaigns. What should I set my target ACoS to? Normally, the recommendation here is you want to set this to a break even, which would be if you have a contribution margin of 35%, set your target ACoS to 35% just to begin with. And then you can adjust from there depending on what your objectives are. Again, tying that back to the objectives we set at the beginning. Main takeaway here is use research to ramp up when you're ready for growth. The last one is the profit campaigns. Profit campaigns, I like to call these ones. These are the campaigns that keep the lights on. Obviously, business cannot stay in business for long if it's not profitable. And so these are the campaigns that you set up to drive the business forward from a profit point of view. They're the terms that work and drive value for the company. Why are they important? Obviously, they allow you to continue to grow profitably. The more of these campaigns you have, the more research you can do, the more expansion you can do. So as you continue to research and expand, you want to continue to add more to your profit campaigns, more terms, more search terms, more competitors, etc. that you're going after. These campaigns are at your desired target ACoS with your acceptable profit margin. So in the example before, if we wanted a 15% profit margin, that meant we needed, I think it was like a 30 or 35% target ACoS. That would be what we would want to set it at to maintain a 15% profit margin for them. Grow profit by finding an army of terms you can compete on. So you're not going to find one or two terms that's going to drive the performance of your account. You're going to find thousands of these terms. And the more of these you have that are in this bucket, the more you can continue to expand on the growth side of your business. So a recap and some actions you guys can take out of some of this stuff is understanding your contribution margin. As I talked about before, contribution margin is your average selling price or your ASP minus your Amazon fees, minus your cost of goods, and that equals your contribution margin. Once you've worked that piece out, you've already done a lot of the work. The next piece is giving every campaign a job. Ranking campaigns, they're going to be over your target ACoS. Research campaigns are going to be at your break-even ACoS, and profit campaigns are going to be at your target ACoS or better than your target ACoS. Setting your objectives the right way. Contribution margin minus your target profit equals what your target ACoS should be. Making your bid adjustments. How to actually go into your campaigns and adjust your bids. That's this formula here, which is taking your target ACoS, timesing it by your average selling price, times it by your conversion rate, and that equals what you can afford to pay. Can I pay 75 cents, $1? Now, if you find that that's too low and you guys and you're finding that you're not getting the traffic that you need, that's where you need to look at how do I improve either my average selling price or my conversion rate so I can be more competitive. I can afford to pay more. If I improve my conversion rate, I can afford to pay a higher bid. If I improve my average selling price, so bundling and things like that, I can afford to pay a higher bid, even if my conversion rate stays the same. So that's the summary of the presentation today. I want to open it up to some questions.
Hi, yeah, I've got a question. So if we have a large portfolio of SKUs, and some of which I will be variating, is it best to prioritize a small number of those SKUs and push them really hard with ads? Or do we want always on ad spend across everything?
Yeah, so that's common with big catalog sizes. So normally you want to pick out your best performing variation and drive most of your traffic to that variation. You cannot have all of your variations show up on the search results all at one time. Amazon will only allow you to have one variation as the primary or the hero one show. So in general, you want to pick the one that's going to drive the most amount of traffic, and all of your other variations will benefit from the traffic that comes in from that main one. So it's going to be the one that gets the most amount of clicks and in that click-through rate. Any other questions? Yes?
When performance drops, what should I be looking at for this?
It's a good question. It's almost like you read that off something. I put this slide in because this is a good example of what you should do when performance drops. So I'll look at the top one as an example here. So this is an example of where or how to diagnose sales and traffic. So look at the top line in this example. So sales equals traffic times conversion rate times average selling price. A little bit like what I showed you before. So when performance drops or sales drop, it's one of those three things. It's either traffic declined, conversion rate declined. Sorry, Jackie, I'm talking to like everyone, but you asked the question. Traffic declined, conversion declined, or the average selling price declined. So one of those three things is the problem, and sometimes it's a combination of two. So you can have a situation where your traffic and your conversion rate decline, but at least you know now from that where to focus. If it's a conversion rate problem, then you can start to diagnose, am my competitors doing something that's causing me a problem? Is there something that's not right about my product listing, like my retail readiness, maybe my review count, my review rating dropped, things like that. If it's a traffic thing, you can figure out, is it the traffic on my ads that's dropping, so that the ads traffic, or is it my organic traffic, so like your brand search and things like that, or both, exactly, which is a bit harder to fix. But you know, at least you can understand where it's coming from, and then you can start to put in a plan to diagnose it. Average selling price doesn't change as often, so most of the time it's going to be your traffic or your conversion rate. One of those two things are going to be where you focus on the most. So hopefully that answered your question. Anyone else? Yeah, another one.
I'm just setting up quite a lot of ASINs at the moment, and one of the things I'd love your insight about is product detail page optimization. So what are the most important things to optimize? So I'm assuming like product title, product description, images. How important is ACoS content? How important is a brand store, etc.?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a really good answer, and I'm going to say it depends. But no, I'll be a bit more specific than that. So the number one thing is your hero image. It's the first point of contact that anyone sees on your brand. So if you were to ask me, I've got a very limited amount of time, I've got a very limited amount of budget, where do I need to spend my time? Spend it on that. That'll get you the biggest ROI on your time. After that, because it's what gets people into the listing and draws that piece. After that, it depends a little bit on the category and how premium the category is on what's most important next. For most categories and brands, it's going to be your image stack, followed by your copy, your title, your bullet points, etc. And then your A+ content is normally last, just because of where it's positioned. It's lower down the page and you got to go find it. That being said, though, in some cases with premium brands, A+ content is much more important. And so in those cases, you know, A+ content is what you focus probably before, like say your SEO and things like that. So yeah, so bit. What's that? Yeah, and storefront. Yep. Good one. Thank you, random crowd member. And yes, storefront as well is obviously really important, again, for premium brands as well. Yeah, so hopefully that answered the question. So I'm going to give you the answer for this one is more about understanding your customer over a longer period of time. So if your ads are representing more of, you know, how it is to acquire customers, a lot of time that can just be because it's more competitive than it used to be and things like that. But if you can acquire those customers and get them coming back from you and purchasing from you over the long term, like from cross-selling and things like that, you can shift your dynamic in the business so that you're not just acquiring the customer every time and then having to reacquire them again and again. And if you know people come into your ecosystem and they go on to buy product, you know, X, product Y, product D, you can start to know that, okay, we have a particular product with, and you know, in this example, I'm going to call it a gateway ASIN, and that ASIN drives purchases for 3 other products. And so by focusing most of your advertising on that product, you are going to get the downstream benefit of not having to promote the other 3 products, because the natural progression is that they're going to buy those other 3 products as an example. You need to dive in the data to figure that out, but the key part there is that to kind of turn it around and not focus purely on advertising is to understand what products are those gateway products that go on and drive the rest of the business, as an example. So that would be the way I do it. If it was a replenishable product, as in like a product that gets a lot of repeat purchases, like a supplement or something like that, you could, most of that would be again around the repeat rates and understanding how often they come back and repurchase and things like that. So it depends a little bit on what the product is. If it's a big purchase, expensive product, it's more about what other products they buy, because they're not going to come back and buy that same product again, or unlikely unless they break it. But if it's a repeat type product, repeat purchase, you can understand, that lifetime value. Anyway, hopefully that answered your question. Yeah. So I think in those situations, Amazon, I think is a lag kind of by design. Amazon's not a platform that you go necessarily to go and launch a new product that no one knows about. Amazon is a place that you go to capture demand that's already there. It's not a place necessarily that you go to create demand. Can be, but most of the time it's a lagging type thing. So a lot of the time, the reason you're probably seeing year 2 and 3 that it's starting to pick up is because you're finding that you're creating the demand in retail or in D2C or whatever, and then you're seeing it overflow onto Amazon and build up from there. So to speed it up, it is going to be about being leveraged with advertising. You are going to have a higher percentage for that product for a longer period of time, probably higher than what you would have elsewhere. And that's going to build velocity, which is going to build reviews, ratings, some of the things you touched on before. And then you're getting the flywheel going, reviews, ratings, etc. That gets you more sales, would get you more reviews and more ratings, and gets you more sales, and you keep building the flywheel like that. So, because you're not doing, and for anyone else and she used NPD, the new product launch is what she means by that. So that's going to be part of it. And I suppose it's an expectation thing too. Like, just know that it's not going to be necessarily, like what you do in elsewhere, because it doesn't have the activations that potentially you're doing, elsewhere. And so it's kind of just only benefiting kind of off some of that traffic. Amazon's got Rufus and that's kind of their version of it. I think it's going to impact everything because it's everywhere now. But I think mostly the way I've seen it impact it is actually still brings customers to the platform. It's still not great at doing the checkout and purchase part of it, which Amazon's really good at. And ultimately, Amazon's backbone of their business is their fast delivery. Like, that is, if you were to sum down what they're absolutely excellent at, it's that. That's not going to replace that piece of it. So I think if anything, it benefits them in a lot of ways. I think that we've seen in advertising already, and I haven't covered it in today's slide, but prompts is becoming a piece of advertising. So people can be, rather than just a keyword that they're searching for, they can be searching for looking for the best tennis racket that's for a 5-year-old kid, and it's quite a long piece. So that's going to become more involved and more part of what people do on Amazon for sure. Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Hey, well, I hope you really enjoyed that. I thought he did an amazing job at the event. It was well received. And if you want to get those slides, they're going to be below wherever you have downloaded this here. And in listening to that there, if you're just thinking, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with Sebastian to see if what you're doing with your Amazon ads is on point, you just know that there's something there you need to shift, well, then connect with us either at hello@GoSellGlobal, or if you go to the website, gosellglobal.com, and then you can book a call on there. Even if you actually go to the management for Amazon ads, you can book directly into Seb's calendar. So feel free to do that. And thanks again for tuning into TACOS Tuesday, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All the best.